Welcome. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, Johanna, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm tired, but I'm good.
So Johanna and I almost both forgot that we rescheduled this since we're so used to being on schedule. It was like, oh yeah, we rescheduled for Monday. That's right.
Plus, I'm
Spiritual
trying to
maintenance.
cram like 2 weeks of upcoming work into like 3 days before I leave. So
Yeah. No, that's usually yeah, especially when you're going away somewhere.
I'm getting ready to crawl in bed, and I get this. I get off. Well, I get off my last session. I have like my phone has blown up from being on session for so long. I'm like, I'm just gonna go get in bed, and the first one I see is Tanya talking about the show, and I'm like, shit, I gotta get ready. Whoops.
Are you all packed and ready to go?
Not even close. Hi, Vanessa.
For your birthday shenanigans.
My birthday trip. Yeah, woo woo. It's a birthday month.
So this for this episode, guys, you guys get a double whammy because we're having 2 episodes this week, obviously tonight, and then we're having Santera on Wednesday, and you guys got to check out Santera. I'm so excited. We've been trying to get Daniel on God, for almost a year now.
Did you try last year?
I tried last year, right in the tail end. He's just such a busy musician and a busy guy. And, he was on tour, literally on tour while I'm like writing him going, hey, can you be on our show? So it took quite some time for us to get him. So I am, so excited to have him on board for the show and to hear his tunes. So you guys are in for a really big treat for some awesome sound healing. But on this episode, we wanted to talk to you guys about navigating relationships during the Great Awakening. Spiritual awakening.
Joke. It's no joke.
Yeah. So it was something that, Johanna felt very passionate about us revisiting. We've talked about friendships and how things change, but really it needs to be more than that. It really needs to be more focused, I think, just on the level of, what it is, not just about the changes that you go as a person, but that it is totally normal to be able to, or just go through shedding, not just yourself, your whole identity to some aspect, but relationships.
Well, and that's a big thing. Like literally, I've had people in my inbox just asking me, like, I don't feel connected anymore to my partner. We're not on the same wavelength. We're not in the same interests. Like we're not in the same journey. How do I navigate this? How do I know when it's time to walk away? And, all of those things. So I figured, I think with Venus just coming out of retrograde, I think it's just a really good time for us to talk about it because we've all been sitting in reflection of our relationships for the past 6 weeks.
Do you think it's just at the point where we have that awareness that it's not like there's something that obviously has changed in us personally, but when it comes to the forefront of speaking the truth about how something's not authentic anymore and then start questioning it, I think it's not just the level of a spiritual awakening, but it's like, how true are we to either stay in a relationship or, because there's times where, let's all admit, we've had people in our lives that we stuck around with and just kept going and going. And then it's like, how much is enough? Or like, why am I hanging out with this person? Or what am I doing? I don't have anything in common with them. I think for me personally, it became my interests. That was a huge thing. Like, because I had such a change in my interests, my hobbies, what I did with my time. I mean, that was a huge thing for me. So all of a sudden I didn't have anything in common with a lot of my friends. Like, I was like, no, I'm sorry. I don't feel like hanging out at the bar, like, unless you want to have a deep conversation and let's talk philosophy.
Well, what about with your partner though? What about, because you were married and and while you were waking up, you were still married. So how did you navigate that? Because I think that's when I talk about relationships, I'm talking more about the intimate partnerships.
So that was definitely, that's a toughie because that was a mix because, Brian, and I'm open about it, he was my best friend. So personally, it was harder to lose my best friend than it was my husband. So I need people to understand that. Like, it was like we were so different as people, but we always somehow found a way to compromise and be together. So it was weird when I started, we both did it. We were both guilty of it, of filling our time up with not anything in common anymore. It's like all of a sudden we didn't have anything in common, or there was no interest there, or there was a lot of bickering and fighting and blaming each other for things. And that's when I knew, like, the shit hit the fan for me, is that because everybody assumed we were the perfect couple because we were such good friends. I mean, we were best friends. How could that possibly be? I mean, nobody, everybody was shocked when we got divorced. So that was how it was for me, and that personal thing, and being able to, there is I guess I think her name's Brooke, who's the life coach. I used to listen to a lot of her podcasts. And she said something really profound about marriage, especially with separation. And it really stuck with me. And it's something that I feel could, easily be brought up again, is that the best advice I got when I listened to it, because at first I thought it sounded crazy, but she says, if you can leave a relationship and say, I love you, and leave it in that aspect, she goes, your whole world will change. It will be completely different. And I was like, well, how can somebody love somebody if they're not in love with them anymore? Or, and that was a giant lesson for me, is can you still hold space for love and still love a person, but not necessarily be with them anymore? So that was a huge lesson for me. Not something I learned overnight.
That's where I am right now, because most people, I mean, we're pretty open about it, that I'm getting a divorce from my husband right now. And he is one of my best friends. He is somebody that I stayed 2 years too long, if not more than that, probably almost 3 years too long, because I didn't want to lose that person. And so I did everything in my power to try to bring him into my world.
Yeah.
And try to, like, not necessarily fix him, but continuously try and push that envelope of opening his mind so that he could come up to my level. It was literally like I was waiting for him to catch up so that we could move forward.
The waiting game.
Well, and I'll tell you one thing, what I learned through this, because I'll tell you, people have, like yesterday, every Sunday, him and I go to lunch. And even though we're getting a divorce, we go to lunch. And one of his friends said to him, I don't know how you're doing this. And because we are in such a good place that when people see us out, even though we have made it public that we're getting a divorce, they're like, why are you hanging out with her? Like, why are you guys friends? Like, why do you still say you love each other? Why do you do these things? It's because we do. We just had to come to that realization. But with what I learned in this, because I learned I could probably write a whole book on relationships after this relationship, is that waiting is like stagnant water. Yeah. And so I literally, and he literally, we both manifested physical dis-ease, illness, and weight gain because we stayed too long. We became toxic to each other. Yeah. And the minute I said, I want a divorce, I know we have to like physically stop this and separate this. We both began to physically, mentally, and emotionally heal, and realize that we don't want to lose that connection. We don't want to lose our family. We don't want to lose our relationship. We just have to change the dynamic. Yeah. Yeah. But I was afraid of letting go.
And it's a big change. I mean, it's a huge change, and it's different when you have children involved. And, I didn't have that portion of it, but, I still had pets. I still had family.
Those are children.
I still had, there was my nieces involved and everything. So, like, there was still people involved, family, close loved ones. But, the waiting thing was, you nailed it. I mean, I was writing a little bit about my story today, and that was one of the things I touched on too, was that we sat and both waited. I don't know what the fuck we were waiting for. Right. Like, literally, we were both just waiting for, like, something to change. Both of us like, change, but none of us were changing the way we wanted each other to change.
Yes.
And that was the biggest realization, where it was like, he had a completely different realization of what he wanted. And, and it was like, you all of a sudden had to face that. We were two completely, we just broke apart. Like, we were separated. And it's not one being better than the other, because that was not the case. I can tell you that right now. It was not the case. I mean, there were things that my ex was really good at, like his health. He was so on par with taking care of himself. I was the exact opposite. I could have given two shits. Like, I really did. I was like, nope, I don't want to exercise. I don't want to do that. So when I started to learn, like when I was really going through the phase of learning to love myself and like really being aware of my feelings, and meditation, seriously, like meditation saved my life. It really did. I always say that. But that really was the push for me to all of a sudden be healthy in other portions of my life, was that. But him being a role model for me, it was the exact opposite. Like when I used to see him do stuff or like him be healthy, I would just get like annoyed because, you know, he was taking care of himself and I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, let's go out to, you know, Burger King. I just was like completely different in there. So when I switched, it was really weird for him to see that all of a sudden, like I was taking care of myself and doing stuff. So
He was probably resentful.
yeah, I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was really resentful. All of a sudden, I'm taking care of myself. And it's like, now I want to leave, you know? And so I can see both sides of the coin of that. But it really was my journey to find myself. And I can't even imagine, you know, like how you said with your, you know, with Paul, is that since you guys were able to, or you're able to do this now, is to find that line where you both can still love each other and still be able to do it in a loving way. It makes a huge difference than you know, having that resentment or bitterness, because I wouldn't say that we were the best of friends at the end, but we have a better friendship now because there's no obligations.
Right. And that
so
was the
it's
whole
like
thing.
it's just gone. Like we call and chat with each other and it's
Yeah.
great.
Like
So-
I told someone recently, I said, you know, because I was feeling this energy, and you know this, Tanya, as
Yeah.
my, you know, as my person who holds so much space for me, who will sit in the closet with me.
This is true.
This is the truth story. Or at least attempt to.
We did.
But that was the whole thing. Was I tried for so long, and I pushed for so long, and I forced for so long, and I was trying to make a square fit into a triangle, and it wasn't working, and I was beating my head against the wall because I was like, all of my focus was on, I'm doing all I can do. Why aren't you doing all you can do? And it was like, he didn't know that that's what he wasn't, like, he had no idea. He's like, I don't understand why you're so upset. Why, you know, and I was so resentful that he wasn't taking care of himself. Like he had all, you know, all these things. And I'm like, I'm over here busting my ass, taking care of myself, working out, doing all the work on my shadows, like literally everything I can do. And nothing in my body was changing. Nothing was happening, and nothing was happening with him. And it was because I had to let him off the hook. And so the minute that pressure was off, we let each other off the hook of continuously trying to make something work that wasn't meant to work anymore. We got root rot. We were compressed into a container and we're like, I've got to stretch, you know? And so I let him off the hook and everything changed. And that's what it was, is our relationship just is going to change. And honestly, this is my third divorce. Okay. And I'm not embarrassed by that at all. And I'll tell you, the first two did not go over very well. They were gnarly divorces. And I didn't want to do that again. I said, my kids don't need to suffer. I don't need to suffer. We don't need to go through this turmoil. It doesn't have to be abrupt. And, you know, everybody looks at that and they're so shocked by that, because it's like, it doesn't have to be. When did we come at this belief that divorce has to be nasty? Where did we come up with the belief that marriage has to be a lifelong commitment? Because here's the thing, if you both are not growing in the same direction, you're going to get caught in entanglement, and you're going to pull one way or another, and the other one's going to snap you back, and then you're going to snap them back, and you're not going to get very far.
Yeah. I mean, I was so afraid of not the divorce of being on my own. That was not what my fear was. My fear was the judgment I was going to get from other people. I mean, that was huge for me. It was huge because I always was the good girl. I was always the one, you know, like I never had any issues or anything like that. So I had to face a lot of stuff with judgment with my family, and which is crazy because I mean, your family's, you know, supposed to be there to support you,
right?
And not that I never felt that they did support me and everything. You know, they were confused what was going on because I all of a sudden I just dumped this on them,
right?
What was going on, and it was like, well, you know, so they had no clue because I kept it hidden for so long. But it was a huge adjustment because, I mean, this is not something where it was just a fly-by relationship. I was married for over 13 years with him. We grew up together. His brother's married to my sister. I mean, we were a really close-knit family. So this was not just me going through this. So I felt responsible for everybody else. And that was like, I had to go to therapy just for that, for that portion, just to get over that because of the judgment and feeling that and getting anxiety over it. And, am I allowed to have my own life? Am I going to look weird because I want, why I don't want to be considered selfish or, I'm doing something bad or feeling guilty because I want my own life now. And, it's just not the life I wanted. It just wasn't. And there comes a point, I really do believe that everyone will hit this point at one point in their life where you just know it's enough. And it's going to be like this gurgling cry of no more.
That's how it was for me. It was a breaking point.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I still remember being in the therapist's office. We were in counseling when we were talking about the next stage of like where we were going with this and how we're going to continue. Because I mean, basically it was like right or wrong. Like she, was mediating us. And she goes, well, I can't really do anything if you guys don't want to work together on this. And so she was giving, options to us. And I just was like, no. And I could not believe I said it.
Tanya learned the word no.
And I was shaking, I was staring, and I was crying. I was so upset. And I remember it was the most uncomfortable car ride home. And, I felt bad for him because he, I mean, it was a horrible, horrible situation for both of us because we were both in shock that, I felt very guilty for it. But it's something that I didn't have to feel guilty about. It's just a part of being the process of what is your identity? What are you authentic about? And that is a huge wake-up call for people when they go through this, when there's awareness on here. And I got to bring up a good point too with the spiritual awakening thing. And it is relationships. It's not just love relationships. Is that there's going to be things too. I don't know if this happened to you at early on, Johanna, but I know for me, not just my relationship with my husband and my friends that changed. I started having people from my past show up again in forms. And that was something too that I felt was coming up in the level of, why am I connecting with these people again that I haven't talked to in quite some time? And some of them I really reconnected with, like in a really profound way. And others, it was like almost like I was clearing a state where it was like, all right, is this my chance to clear, something that came up that maybe was, I was thinking on there. Did you ever have anything similar to those?
No, the people that have come back have all come back through work, like messages. So I'll literally, like, not that long ago, I was doing my makeup and I just got an instant message that this woman that I used to be friends with in San Diego had just had a baby. And I was literally getting a message to tell her the baby's going to be okay, blah, 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 blah. And I had no idea what was happening. I don't talk to her. I haven't talked to these people in years. And I just message and tell them, and they're like, oh my God, so like, that's it. Like, that's what happens. People show up on lives and stuff, but I haven't had any of that come back, and I'm okay with it. I mean, it is what it is,
Yeah. I know that there were some things they were talking about, some of the common things that happen. And one thing that I read was that a lot of times people in your past who maybe you have broken away from, separated, come back in your life. And it's almost like, you're a completely different stage in your life, basically. And that's kind of a common thing. So I was curious if any of you ever have gone through that. I would love to hear if that's true. I'm just looking at what's out there on there and what I read on. But I thought that was kind of interesting that if we're running into people because, and some people meet their lost soulmates, things like that, past people that they thought they're broken up from, and all of a sudden they're in a completely different part of their life and they can reconnect. So
should I think that happens whether you're awake or not?
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about guilt, and I'll tell you, mine was shame when I was going to leave Paul, because for me, and I know that this is the case for a lot of people, so if you're one of them, let us know in the comments, is that there's no logical reason. There's nothing he did. There's nothing I did. He didn't cheat on me. I didn't cheat on him. There wasn't any major event that took place that is a reason. And so for a lot of my time, I was struggling with, I have a beautiful home. I have someone who accepts me, who loves me. There's nothing wrong with my life, but I'm not satisfied with it because I'm not evolving in the way that I personally work and evolve. I'm a very fast moving person. I like, someone takes a year to go through something, I'm going to go through it in a week. It's just like that type of energy. And so I literally felt trapped. And I felt this immense shame because here I am walking away, literally, you guys, with no safety net, no huge savings, no family. I have no backup, nothing. I'm literally walking away with nothing and starting over again at 40 years old. And I had this immense shame of, what are people going to think? Just like you said, including my own family, who loved him probably more than they love me, because they're, they would call him on his birthday and sing to him. They didn't do that for me. And so I was like, tail tucked, my head tucked between my legs type of energy. Like, I'm choosing me and I'm so sorry. And I that was a big awareness for me that was a piece of shame that I had to clear, because I was like, wow, I'm literally think that I'm wrong for choosing myself. And my everybody's like, well, what about your kids? What about my kids? I'm showing them the example of choosing me and what's right for me, and not staying in a relationship that isn't allowing me to grow. And so I know that a lot of people struggle with, well, there's nothing, they didn't do anything wrong. Why would I leave them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, it does make sense. I mean, it's like, it's almost, I often wonder if, because everyone, listen, not saying that there's steps, everybody's different, every relationship, but there comes to a point where you just know is, do we get counseling? Do we get additional help? Do we try to do whatever we can to save this? It's one thing if you're taking actions, or is it just really too late? Is it like, no, I'm not happy. Why can't we break away? Or what can we do to like move forward or move on? It's tough when you are brought up almost in the level of, I mean, I'll be honest, I was very codependent. I grew up in a codependency life. So my lifestyle was used to either like basically, appeasing everybody else, making sure everyone else is okay, but also needing somebody to take care of me because I was, feeling isolated or something in some point. So I had high expectations with my relationship, with him filling a lot. So where it was like, if it wasn't there, I was unhappy. And if I didn't have something, I was unhappy. So it was hard for me to like learn to just be happy with me. Yeah. Because, and that was really the relationship I was missing in my life. And, it's very difficult when, you're so used to a partner being together and you live together and you cohabitate together. And then all of a sudden you have the responsibilities of it being on you. I still remember when he left the house, and I think I told this story in one of our earlier episodes. And he was showing me how to use the tools, and I didn't have tools. Yeah. Power tools. Now I did not do any of that. Like we had specific things I did and then he did, and that was how we did it. And that's just how we rolled. It worked. Right. So, I didn't use certain tools. So he was showing me how. He was like, okay, I'm going to have to show you how to use a snow blower. And I was like, okay. And I went over and he's like, okay, you're staring at the power washer. And I went, what? And I just started crying. Like I was bawling. Because all of a sudden I was like losing, like I didn't have that, it's like, oh my God. And these are things that I wasn't used to, I was, we were lucky that we took care of each other, but I don't think we had any appreciation for how much we did for each other until we split. And that was the big wake up call for both of us. I mean, it was huge because I was very independent and on my own when I moved, into my condo and my place. I traveled. It was very different than him. He always lived at home. So his big, when he moved in with me, when we were still dating, it was like he was my roommate in my condo. So that was his first big move. He didn't go away to college like I did. He didn't study abroad. So I felt like I had a lot of stuff on my own. I was used to that. Right. So I got kind of used to, relying on each other again. So that was it was freeing, and at the same time it was scary as hell because there are certain things I just never did. So I had to learn how to do. It was like, okay, I'm going to do this. That's how I took it.
Yeah. The only other thing I can talk about that I'm really well versed in, as far as what I've experienced, is as far as the spiritual awakening, when you start doing the work on yourself, like when we're staring at like the ugliest parts of ourselves and our shadows, and we're integrating that shit. If you're in a relationship with somebody, because here's what happens, and some people call this a twin flame. I think anybody's a twin flame that triggers you. And so you're always going to attract somebody. If you have holes in you, you're always going to attract somebody who has the bullets to match your holes, and vice versa. So when you decide to start healing those holes and start doing that work, if the other person is not doing that and they're still firing the gun and the bullets are still flying at the same holes, because you're physically connected and in each other's aura in that way, living in a home, in a relationship, in a commitment, no matter how much you try to close up that hole, it's not going to close all the way if the bullets keep firing at the same hole. It's going to continuously keep opening, and it's going to make you toxic and sick. And so that's another thing to keep in mind, is if you're in a spiritual awakening, I mean, if you're doing that healing work and the other person is not, it's not your job, number one, don't make my mistake, to fix them. It's not your job to point that out to them, that they're screwing up and that they're doing that. It's your job to say, I got to go because those bullets are hurting me now, because, you know, you need that time your body needs that time to physically grieve and allow those wounds to completely close.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of students who come and they're like, I'm doing all this work, but it just keeps happening and keeps happening. I'm like, well, if you've done all the things, now it's time to check your environment.
Yeah. We're going to definitely have to do an episode just specifically on twin flames, because the idea with relationships during a spiritual awakening is a lot of people who may be with another person meet them while they're in another relationship that might seem false to them. So there's a whole different layer and approach to that I definitely feel we need to, touch on. And, I think one of the things, with the twin flame is, you're right, one person's a little bit more ascended than the other, because that's the whole point of it. Like, that's really what it is. It's so that one's ascended so that the other can learn from the other to some aspect, so they can be on their own, because it's not about coming together. It's about becoming one within yourself.
Yep. Union with
the
yourself.
Relationship and the union is just a cherry on top, if that ever happens. But a lot of people, when they think that they met them or the one, they get fixated on it and they chase, and they're like, this is what it is and this is what it means. And I mean, I can tell you as a reader, I can't tell you how many people that I get, it's the same story where they're so trying to fix the other person. And it's like, this is about you. You're going to still be in this trap if you are continuing to fix the other person. So it doesn't matter if it's a twin flame or not. If you are still continually complaining about somebody to the level of, they won't do this, they're not changing, they're not doing that, my answer always going to be is, what are you doing?
Well, yeah, but if you're doing all that you can do, okay, and the other person is not, that's what I'm saying. Because to me, a twin flame is just, you're magnetic. Because so this is what I receive. True love, that is your soulmate, or which is considered true love, is feeling like home. There is no huge hormonal response. There is no huge magnetic draw and connection. In fact, it's the opposite, is you actually draw in that of which you resist in yourself. And that's what they tell me a twin flame is, and that anyone and anything can be a twin flame. And that's my perspective of what I channel. But for me, I was doing all of the things for myself, and I was doing the work on myself, and I was doing the health on myself, and I was doing all of these things. I was trying to fix him so that he could join me and so I didn't have to lose him. It was selfish. Yeah. It really was. It was selfish. I didn't want to lose him. So I'm like, could you hurry up and evolve, please, so we can move on with our life? So for me, it wasn't that I was trying to fix him because I wasn't looking at me. It was because I wanted to take him with me.
Oh, no. And I'm not talking about your,
oh, okay.
I was not talking about your situation, Johanna. I was talking about in general what happens a lot when I'm reading people and they are trying to fix a person in the relationship. It's not because they're wanting to take themselves in there. They're very early in some of these people I'm reading. So it's a little different from what you're saying, which I totally get. I get your story on there. You and I definitely have different aspects on what twin flame is and everything. And that's why I said I think it would be a really good episode so everybody can see all the different sides.
Are you ready to talk about it?
I think I'm ready to talk about it, but I want to have a specific guest on board too, because I resonate really with him and I think he would be really good for the show. So I'm going to try to get him on board for us. So Lynette says, yep, I got hung up on that title for a while. Then I learned to balance and heal the divine feminine and masculine within myself. And now I totally understand the reason for the connection. And that's really with anybody. I mean, honestly, I feel like if you can balance yourself and the energies and really, I mean, I learned so much when I learned what really masculine and feminine energy was. I mean, it was huge for me when I learned that during my awakening, because that was it. I was able to balance myself at that point. It really wasn't about the other person. Now I knew what it was. So I was able to really, learn what it is and see what other people's actions do and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, that's masculine energy. Oh, that's feminine energy. Because that all helps you. It really does. It just helps you in the down road for yourself. To be in those specific situations.
Were you more masculine in your marriage, and was he more feminine, or were you because some people, like, I'm a very masculine teacher, but I'm also I've always just been more masculine energy, period. But I can tell you if and when I ever get in another relationship, I will definitely enter into the feminine role when I'm in my relationship versus when I'm teaching.
So this is really odd. I am more of a masculine energy, and so I really embraced my feminine energy later in life. During my relationship, I was more masculine energy. I like to be the action one. I like to take care of things. I like to do stuff. But when I was breaking down and going through my major depression, I really relied heavily on him because I was hoping someone could fix me. Right. I really was looking for the attention, the love, so like I stopped doing stuff. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't cooking. I wasn't cleaning as much. I wasn't doing the stuff I typically would do. And he had to step in, and he wasn't used to that. So all of a sudden he had to take a role that he wasn't, used to. So it was definitely, we flip-flopped, I would say midway within the relationship. And then I kind of got my shit back together again. And then I went back a little bit too high in the masculine energy because I did do that through my divorce. I had to take actions. But like that was definitely a mix, I would say. That makes sense.
I've always been the caretaker. I've always been the strong one and the one that did everything. So for me, in every relationship, every marriage and every major relationship I've had, it's like I've literally replaced the strong mother figure who did and took care of everything. So they went from their mom or whoever was taking care of them before that to me. And so I ended up raising my husbands, which I don't recommend. We're not meant, and I've heard this is a very old belief. You're not meant to raise your husbands, people, and you're not meant to raise your wives if you're doing it the other way. You guys are meant to be partners. You're not meant to raise them. When someone told me that, I was like, what? I am not raising my husband. Like, this is not a thing. It's not a thing to me.
It's not a thing.
I don't know who told you that, but they were lying to you.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't know. It's, I don't have a lot of experience with that because I honestly, before that, I mean, and I had one guy. I mean, it was Brian. So I was a late bloomer in life. I did not have a lot of relationships. The relationships I was the guy's best friend because I was a tomboy. I did guy stuff. I was more comfortable with men. Most of my friends are men. I have more women friends than I do now, in my 40s than I ever did growing up. So it was very different for me. So I don't have too much input to say other than what I know from one relationship and then having, relationships of like new feelings with people. So that's completely different.
Yeah. And I'm thankful for my history of relationships because it was because of that I was able to, the same way that I find the root patterns in students, I was able to go back and do that in all my relationships. And I was able to see how in every single relationship, because I've been married 3 times. I've been engaged 2 times that I didn't get married. So that's a lot of major relationships.
Wow.
At 40 years old. I mean, I had my daughter at 17. So I started very young. So I was able to go back and see the patterns in every relationships to this point. In fact, into the same reason why I got into this relationship. And I don't regret any of that at all, because now I'm like, I see it. I see it. I see it. I recognize it. I did the processes, and I
Right.
was like, this time it's going to be different. And so before I found the pattern and I got to the root of my side, I'm not even touching them. What I did going into the relationship, when things went wrong, blah, 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 all of it. I got that all situated and healed and like ironed out and neutralized before I even asked for the divorce. Like all of that was done because I was like, otherwise I'm just going to repeat it again. And
Well,
I was, and
yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Do you find that the stuff that I mean, if there's one thing that you felt was repeated in it, could you isolate it down to knowing what that repetition was?
Yep.
Was it just being the caretaker, or was
It's
it
being the
just
saver. It's fixer. And I tell you guys this, I have the ability to see somebody's potential, even if they don't see it within themselves. So my friends, my students, my loved one, I mean, my partners, I see their potential. Even before I was awake, I could see somebody's potential of how good they could be, how much growth they could have. And it was almost like challenge accepted. I'm going to take this person on. I'm going to mold them and fix them. And I will tell all the women who are with my exes right now, you're welcome, because they are better people now after the work that I have done. But I didn't go in that way. I went in, and here's the thing. I've always looked, my friends used to call me Barbie. I've always looked the feminine role, but always had the masculine energy. I was raised with a single dad for a good portion of my life. I played in the dirt. I rode dirt bikes. I did all those things. So I could hang out. Most of my friends were guys, and girls were intimidated by me. So the guys were like, she looks like a female. She looks good, and she plays in the dirt. Like, bingo, we've got a winner. And then, we would get in a relationship, and I would take on that nurturing role, and I cooked and I cleaned, and I had a successful career, and I took care of the kids, and everybody was happy except for me. So every single time, it wasn't that I settled. It was that it was almost like a poor puppy dog where you look at him and you're like, oh, let me fix you and save you and make you better and love you. And no, that's not happening again. I want somebody who I don't want the exact person I am, but I do want someone to challenge me. I want someone who has similar interest in me, who's ambitious and all of those things. And I was never doing that. I was constantly taking on relationships that were with people who needed a little help.
Yeah. Do you think too, like, because there's a controlling thing in there too, and I know that's for me. Like, I had to get things done a specific way because that made me feel safe, or even being the caretaker. Well, I got to make sure this is taken care of, because if it's not, then I'm gonna feel unsafe. Did you feel that level at all, or were you just so full on 100% to them?
No, I think the reason why I needed to save somebody is because I needed someone to save me. And I didn't realize that, because by the time I hit 17, I'd gone through what most people go through in 80 years of their life and trauma. And I had already gone through it in 17 years. And I was so broken and so messed up, but it was so repressed that I'm going to pull my big girl panties up. I have to be the mom. I have to be the caretaker, because at 12 years old, I was raising babies that weren't mine. I was raising my siblings. And so all I ever knew was I had to take care of people. That's how I receive love and appreciation if I take care of people. Or it also became, if I take care of people, I don't get hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, it was the only thing I knew was my job is to take care of people. And if I take care of them, they will love me. But here's the thing. People will treat you the way that you treat yourself. So I wasn't loving me. I wasn't taking care of me. I wasn't doing anything for me. Everybody came before me. And so then I see that, and I have that realization of, holy shit, like they were only mirroring back what they watched me do. Everything was all about them. So of course they were all about them. Why would they be about me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
yeah, that's definitely different from like my growing up, because I was the youngest. I mean, close to the youngest. I mean, my father remarried, so I have a younger brother now. But I had because I had two older siblings who took care of me. I mean, they really did take care of me. They became surrogate parents kind of in that aspect. But it was, feeling like I was a pain in the ass, feeling that, I, wanted to do stuff for them because, that's a lot to put on, teenagers to take care of somebody or growing up, or, when your parents are separated or divorced and not having the attention that you think that you don't deserve. That was a big thing for me. And the attention that I wanted was just wanting attention of anything,
Right.
some kind of, level on there. So I never felt good enough. I never felt like I was deserved of having anyone's attention. So I really had that all through my relationships and anything, like all surface relationships, including friendships. Like I never felt really good enough with people, or the people I did hang out with, it was the ones that, who didn't fit in. So because I could relate to them or I can understand them. So I can't imagine being on the reversed era of feeling like you're taking care of everybody, because with me, when I took care of things, it was because it made me feel good, because all of a sudden I had a fucking job. Like I was like, I'm important. Like I can take care of this.
Yeah,
I
well,
can do
that's
this.
true too. That's true too. I mean, there is that aspect because here's the so here was my pattern. So this is what would happen. I would find somebody, I would see their potential. It would, I would get all excited. It would go really fast. We'd end up in a relationship. Things would go really good for a long time. Most of my relationships, like my marriages, like my last marriage before this was 7 years as well. And so by the time that I stayed way too late, every time the relationship would get toxic, I would gain weight. I would gain 50 to 100 pounds literally overnight. No matter what I ate, no matter what I did, it would just come on. And so once I finally reached that breaking point of I have to leave now, like something liberating me into leaving, I would go into power over. So I would break the energy. I would break the relationship. It's done. It's over. I would leave. And now I'd go into power over. Oh my God, I have to take my power back. And I would go run, 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 run. And I would do all these things. And it was like my inner child was free in that moment. And when she was free, that meant that there was no parents home. Parents were gone. So I went all the way to the other extreme, to where I was partying and I was doing all the things that I shouldn't do, because I was essentially a child home alone. Yeah. I had no parent. Yeah. And so when I would get to the point to where I was going to get, and I would get into trouble or something bad could have happened to me, it's like the man would show up and say, you got to put her back to work because she's not getting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the relationship would come in, whoop, okay, I can't be a kid anymore. Lock that inner child up, throw away the key, no attention for you. I would stop getting my nails done. I would stop getting my hair done. I would stop doing my makeup. I would stop doing everything. And I'd put my hair up, and it's like, okay, mom roll, mom mask on, let's go. Got to take care of everybody, got to clean, got to do all these things. There's no time for me. And that was the pattern. And so then it would dwindle. It'd get toxic because still wasn't choosing me. I'd get set free. I'd go hog wild. I go into no parenting, and it would just repeat. I'm exhausted just telling you guys this.
So Vanessa has a really good question here. I'm going to pop it up on here. She says, after divorcing my ex in the beginning of my awakening, I have been alone for a while. Is it possible that you have to relearn how to date and how to pick a partner during your awakening? Holy hell. I have a full on yes to that. Like, I do feel like it is a learning curve to every aspect on there. I mean, what do you have to say to it, Johanna?
Well, this is what actually I was just talking about this not that long ago. The very best thing that you can do, and I think Vanessa, you already have this tip because this was in my membership that I gave this class, is you have to figure out who you are first, and that's your boundary. So your boundaries are what you will and will not tolerate, what you like and what you do not like. That makes up your structure. And once you know what those things are, now you can say, what are the things I'm looking for in a partner? And if you don't know what those are, then you need to make a list of all the things that you don't want in a partner. Yeah. And start with that. And there gives you a structure to go off of. But if you don't have your structure built first, which is your boundaries, the things that again, what you tolerate, what you won't, what you like, what you don't. I mean, whether it's a crystal to an ice cream, that is what boundaries are. If you don't know what you are, you're just going to attract people that are going to match your wounds again.
You could fall right back into the same wounds and go, wait a minute, this looks very familiar. Or I feel like I've been in this role again. Why is this happening to me again? Because it's comfortable. What you know. There's other aspects to it too. Like I think for like, when I look at it, I try not to do the whole comparison thing because, I've been with one really long-term partner. So it's like trying hard not to compare them with another person, but what you want to have and give that person the breathing room to be their own person and not have to compare them to. And I think that was probably the biggest learning curve I had, is the whole comparison thing, because I was assuming things would be a bad way, or I was assuming that this person was going to react this way because of one guy.
Right.
And that was something I had to learn to let go of and to allow things to just, happen naturally and not be so fixated on like what they're thinking or what's going on. But
yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I never had that problem. I was always able to make a clean break and start the new relationship and not see anything through the beer goggles of the last relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just never did that. So I'm good, but there are people who do. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely what I went through. So Lynette says, I've been single for like 15 years. My awakening is about 5 years or so. Now I'm even more pickier than I was before. I totally given up on searching, and now I've shifted into attracting it to me. That's the best approach.
Yep.
I'm just living my life and doing my thing. I am telling you, there's a point, and that's where I'm right with you, Lynette. There is a point where you just feel like you got to do your own thing, and if it happens, it happens. My biggest hang up was I didn't have kids. I really wanted to have a kid. I'm getting older. Like, I'm like, when's it going to happen? I'm on a time limit. My biological clock is motherfucking ticking. What the hell? So like, that was really big on me.
And I was that belief system.
I was like totally stuck on it. Like, I was like, this is not going to happen now for me. So I had to grieve it. I had to grieve it. I really did. And I mean, I'm now almost 2.5 years divorced. And I would say I'm at the tail end of grieving that. Let that story die. Like that's not my end all of my life, having that, particular thing. But I mean, who wants to date somebody and say, right off the bat, you can't even connect to them.
First date.
It's like,
so you want children? Yeah. Do you this? 30 seconds. Let's go. Yes. What do you got for me?
I don't want to waste your motherfucking time. Like,
I'll tell you, I'm not looking forward to dating, and I have no desire to date or do anything. I, for the first time in my entire life, want to be alone. Like, since you guys, I was 12 years old. I was actually 11 when my sister came in. I was 12 when my brother came in. My stepmother and my stepmother was an addict. My dad was checked out. I was literally raising babies and going to school, and that's all I've ever known. And when I left my house, I had a child. So it's like I've never just been in my own energy alone. And I can't wait to bask in it and roll around naked in it and just be like, I am just in my own energy. TMI, maybe?
No. I think it's funny because, so when I had the house to myself, it was the first time I had been like, I only had a little window because I always had roommates. And I had this little window of not having roommates. And it was like this really huge freedom. Like, I'm not kidding you, people. I was like eating soup out of a pot in my underwear, and I was so happy. I was like, nobody's here. I can do whatever. Well, I'm gonna watch a movie. Oh, I can play Xbox. I don't have to shower today. Nobody's here to look at me. Like, I was enjoying that. I really was. I really was enjoying that, and I got kind of used to it. And then I had to sell my house, and then I had to move temporarily with another friend who I got kind of spoiled with because she had a different schedule, and we were like totally on par different. Like, like. We got each other. It worked. And then I move again to a whole nother state.
You have so many people in your house now.
With roommates now that, like, I got, 2 roommates. I love them. And one of them's got a son. And all of a sudden I lost that again. And it was like, holy hell, I have all this male energy. Now I'm living with a bunch of guys and it's a family. And it was a huge adjustment for me because I got used to doing my own thing. And then all of a sudden I was in a family or dynamic again. So like I had I was freaking out like over it, because then, it is changes that I went through in like the matter of 2.5 years of finding myself. But I'm so grateful for that. There were so many people in my life when I kept my house that did not agree with the approach that I did.
Yeah.
Said I made a big mistake, that I shouldn't have done that I should have been the one that left, that I should have gotten the apartment and I shouldn't have taken that on there. I am so grateful I didn't listen to anyone. I am so grateful that I just listened to me, because yeah, it sucked. It was hard. I can't tell you how many tears I had doing stuff on my own and realizing the shitty mistakes I made. But I learned so much about myself in that house, And you've been to my house. You knew what kind of energy
never
was
go
in
back
that
to
house.
that house again. One day we're going to talk about what happened that night.
About that house. Yeah, I think we can. I think I want to see if we still have that video.
I could probably go back. I was just thinking about that old group.
It would be fun to dissect that video, to bring it up and see if we can find it.
I'm gonna. I
make it one of our episodes.
I archived that group, but I can still go back and unarchive it and pull the video because I know it's in there, and because we recorded right after it.
We recorded right after. It was probably, this is when we wanted to do the breakdown, and that just happened to be like the initial pre-episode when we were like, we need to do the breakdown, but
like 8 months before we actually started or even longer.
Seriously. But and it was really wild and crazy. And for those of you who love paranormal, you're gonna have to check it out. I
think Lynette was in that group, so she probably saw
Lynette probably watched it. Yeah. Anyway, I think it would be fun to rewatch it and just have our commentary because we probably be laughing our asses off going, what the hell are we doing?
Oh man, I will never forget that trip. I will never forget that trip ever. It was just something we had to experience.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting trip. And it was the first time we met each other in person.
Yeah, in person.
So, Johanna and I, and this is the other thing that's so amazing about, and, we're getting close to our time up here. And I do want to talk about tips on spiritual awakening and what are the best tips you can do. There's a whole freaking world out there. If you are ever feeling alone, you're not.
Never.
There's so many people going through it. Like I said, Johanna and I met online, like via Facebook somehow, and just kind of connected that way. I can tell you most of the people I'm close to aren't even in my state.
No, me too.
They just aren't anymore. Like now we're all over the place. And it wasn't because I moved. It was just like, I got some people in Canada, some people in, Australia, all over the place now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Lynette says, yeah, she was there. So we should totally, she probably remembers it.
I'll go look for it. If I can find it, we'll make it an episode.
Lynette should get some kind of award or something for being the longest viewer since she was there from the beginning.
There's a few. I'm surprised. I have a few that are back from 2015 and 2016 that have stayed around. Not that they're still working, they're just people that resonate and hang out, and you just it just happens. But I don't ever go into business or do anything with somebody I have not met physically in person. That's just my thing. So I was like, I had to go. And I had to connect. We had to be in person.
Yeah. The other tip that I would like to give regarding just the spiritual awakening or feeling alone or trying to figure out what is the best thing, definitely go within. Like I said, meditation saved me because it is an individual process. It is not something where you can compare. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are the same. You'll find those videos that will say the 10 things about a spiritual awakening, or like there's certain common aspects of what it is. And that foreground is there. But we're individuals. We're human. We all have different experiences. So really just take what resonates to you. And that is a learning curve for a lot of people because they're not used to spending that time with themselves. So that's one of the biggest recommendations I can give, is just creating that space for you, that you can breathe, that you can, learn how to be with yourself and learn your feelings, what emotions come up, and just, follow your heart.
For me, I would say that it's going to cover relationships and spiritual awakening. And it's to become intimate with all of yourself. And I mean the personality traits that you can't stand, the people that trigger you. I mean, every part of you, the reason why you wear a mask, the reason why you're not, bumping rap music in the carpool line because you're afraid of judgment, whatever it is, your body. I mean, make a list of all, that's the best thing you can do, is make a list of all the personality traits that you don't like. And then when you look at that, you need to become intimate with it. And that means into me, I see into this, I hear into this, I see into myself, I hear into myself, I know myself, I love myself. that when you struggle with intimacy in a relationship, it's because you're not intimate with yourself and you're not seeing, loving, accepting, being with all of yourself. And so you can just make that list, and then you can pull that one up and you can bring it to the table and you can say, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to shame this part of me. I'm just going to sit with it and see what it has to offer me. Like, what do you want to share with me? Because literally that's it. All you have to do is be present with that part of yourself. And when I say accept it, I mean, just imagine your heart opening and this energy coming in for a hug. Like, that's all you're doing. People get so hung up on acceptance, mean that this is the end all be all and this is just how I'm going to be. Yeah. When acceptance really is you're just giving that part of yourself a big ass hug and saying, it's okay, girl. It's okay.
I still love you.
I still love you.
I mean, I'm like I told you, I couldn't even look at myself, when I was doing my makeup or anything like that. I had a hard time looking at myself or talking to myself. And that was work I had to learn to do, was to have a conversation with myself.
Great job. You did a great job of that.
Yeah. But I mean, that took 2 years for me to just keep doing that, So
but you were consistent. And that's the thing, is most people aren't consistent. They just, it's not a magic pill. Nothing will ever be a magic pill. It has to, whether it's a relationship with a person, that relationship with a person always begins with the relationship to yourself. So put yourself first. Always put yourself first. And then you can not only serve yourself, but then you can go and save everybody else. And that's what I didn't do. I didn't serve myself first. So I was always drained and depleted.
Yeah. In tarot, we call that the Ace of Cups. Yeah. Give yourself that Ace of Cup, guys.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for being on board. Like I said, we're going to be back on Wednesday with Suntera. We're going to have Daniel Coates here. So excited for that. I just can't wait to listen. Have you listened to any of his music yet? I
haven't had time to do anything like that.
Girl, you are in for a treat.
I'm excited.
You're going to love it.
I love sound healing, so I'm down.
All right, guys, make sure you like, subscribe. We appreciate y'all sharing, and we will see you next time. Oh, and just so you guys are aware, because after Suntera, you're going to be on a break for a little bit. You're off that thing. Just so you guys know, we are having a giveaway, and I'm coming on at doing my tarot for next week. And it's going to be by donations, guys, because we would love to get some donations just because of the wear and tear on things in the podcast world. And, we do this out of love, and, we want to be able to keep the show going, to cover our expenses. So I am coming on for my tarot, and I'm going to be doing those readings for you guys, and also doing some giveaways as well. So it's going to be really exciting and fun. I don't know, maybe Johanna on her trip or something can pop in just to say hi. Let us know, like, while she's sitting there and basking in the sunlight.
So that won't be this
fun.
It won't be this Wednesday. It'll be the following Wednesday show that she's going to replace that show with.
I'm going to be replacing the show, and there's going to be a sign up, guys. So if you want to have an early sign up, this way I can have a list ready. I'm trying to be prepared since I'm not going to have Johanna here to be my mediator. So I will have that list out on Monday. All right, guys. Thank you, and have a good night.